Hello everyone, welcome to season 2 of the Under 30 Chit-Chat, where we talk to Forbes Middle East 30 under 30 listers who are changing the world around them and shaping the future of the region. I'm Layan Abo Shkier, and today I'm glad to be joined by Shane Shin. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Real excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you with us today. Shane, you've been listed on Forbes Under 30 list in 2019, just 2 years after establishing Shorooq Partners with your partner Mahmoud. But before we go deep into your story and the business aspect of your story, I want to actually to get to know you more on a personal level. So we want to talk a little bit about your personal story. Can you tell us, if you want to introduce yourself to someone, how would you describe yourself?
Oh, thank you. Let me start with my personal story. So I'm born and grew up in South Korea, and I was there until middle school. And when I went to high school in Canada, I really wanted to be a musician back then. So I played the clarinet, played the piano throughout my life. But soon, probably around junior year in high school, I realized I'm not the Asian Mozart of our generation. So I was good in Canada. But I realized I was not good enough probably to be the prodigy, like Mozart of my generation. So I transitioned from music to business, and I went to work to school as an undergrad, majoring in finance, minor in Chinese. So the reason I studied Chinese is I always wanted to be part of this emerging market story. Like I felt US was a great place to study and to work for, perhaps start my career, but not a place to build my career. So I studied in China at the Harvard of China called Peking University. And that's where I started to really focus on what are the global emerging markets like China, India, Southeast Asia, and Middle East. So these are the markets I started to focus on. And after college, I started my career at Lazard in New York, but moved to San Francisco office soon. And then that's where I really started my career in San Francisco. And then I was fortunate enough to join a company called Global Foundries, which is part of Mubadala's frontier tech team. And that's where I met Mahmoud. So I was spending time with him, working with him side by side, and we're investing in the most advanced frontier technology globally, like 5 nanometer, 7 nanometer. So satellite, everything is driven by semiconductor space. So I was investing in that globally, but never in the Middle East, because we don't have a semiconductor industry. Hence, Mahmoud and I started Shorooq in 2017, and I moved from San Francisco to Dubai in 2017, and I was really privileged to be in Forbes 30 under 30 in 2019. Probably, I think I was one of the only Asians, or first Asian, to really be featured. So really, it has been a humbling journey.
Absolutely. And you mentioned your story, which it seems short, but that has a lot of details that I actually want to focus on. So if we could go back to your childhood, whether when you started, in South Korea and then you moved to Canada, if you want to remember these days, how would you describe them? Like, can you describe to me your childhood if you want to summarize them, let's say in like 3 words, what would it be?
So first, the concept of first was always important. Second, a uniqueness. And third, passionate. So many people, I think I've always wanted to be something different. And the first, how do I describe it? The easiest way to be number one, to start first. If you start first, by default, by definition, you're already number one. And if you are passionate and sincere and just humble, I think you already have such a big defensive mode. This doesn't only apply to business. It can be studying, music, sports, anything you name it. So I've always wanted to be number one on something, and I was good in academics. Like, perhaps I'm being Asian. Many Asians are good in academics. I was very good in academics. Music, I was also quite good. And I think I was always looking for a place to be number one. Korea was great. It's one of the most advanced countries, my hometown. But I wanted to go outside of Korea because it's a larger market. So I joined the best high school in Canada. There I was like a top clarinetist and the top student in academics. But Canada, I soon realized, was not large enough. Hence, I went to the school in the US, when I was in the US, it's already too developed market. So I wanted to do something different. Hence, I thought about China. But when I went to China, I realized I was 1 decade after or late. If I went to China back in 2000, it would have been best. But when I went to China around 2010 to 2012, it was already getting saturated. Hence, I was constantly looking for a new place like Middle East, Dubai, Saudi, where you can really differentiate as a first and unique, and also where I can just pursue my passion.
You mentioned something that you've always wanted to be number one since you were a kid.
Yeah.
Where do you think that motivation came from? Was it like a push by the family, or was it something inside you that made you want to do
So
this?
probably good brainwash by my parents. Like they never asked me to study. Really, like
Okay.
I think many people think Koreans, Chinese, Japanese is all we do is studying. So actually they never told me to study, but they did ask me to be unique. They did ask me to be something different. So probably that. One thing I learned from my parents, so my father is a plastic surgeon. My mother is used to be a teacher, but she married and she became an amazing housewife. But one thing I always learned from them was this humble upbringing. We were not poor, but like we never were like extravagant, even to this day. And second, they are extremely diligent. Like my father, he always worked 6 days a week, and I thought that was the right thing to do. And he comes home around like 8:30 p.m. every day, and we used to have dinner at 8:30 p.m. to 8:45, and I thought that was the right thing to do. Later, I realized, like we were actually having dinner really late, and 6 days of working is not common. But I don't think I've ever seen my parents complain or have a difficulty with that lifestyle. And that was just ingrained into me and my sister. My sister also went to Ivy League. So like it's just, we just thought that was a natural thing to do. So brainwashed since the early days.
That's a nice way to put it. And if we want to talk about the music, what drew you into music?
Yes.
And how did you start learning it?
So music, I first started with piano. A piano is a basic, let's say, instrument. But look, again, I'm not a Mozart, so I wanted to have a specialty, and I chose clarinet. Why do I like a clarinet type of instrument? First, it's all about the discipline and the teamwork. If you want to play really as a part of an ensemble, such like we're talking about 50 people to like hundreds of people gathering together, practice, and you really create like what we call music. So that has always been something I enjoy. I'm an expressive guy, so I care. It was so much fun. And I think that's why I'm still also expressive on a personal level and professional level to this day.
And do you still play the clarinet?
So
and the
great.
piano?
One day when Shorooq is a bit larger, because we have such a large ambition, I really do want to get back into on a professional level. Today I can practice, I have a piano at home, I have a clarinet at home, so I can practice solo. But to really be part of the team, I should travel less. I should have a lot more stability at my home base, but I travel too much and I cannot be a burden to the team. So I don't practice as a team.
Okay, and you've explained why you wanted to move from music to business. But if you could remember that move, that transition, emotionally, how was it on
Yes.
you, and how do you see it actually impacting you today as
Yes.
as a starter, as a musician?
So first of all, surprisingly, it was not as difficult per se in the sense that I also like business. And my personality, which is to take calculated risk, being proactive and fast and aggressive, those all resemble well to the business. And I also watched a lot of Korean drama back then, and like businessmen were getting really popular. So like this is the times when in Korea there were a lot of education on M&As, on finance, capital markets was flourishing. And I saw those and I thought I could do well. But look, music is something still ingrained into my heart. I think it was more rational to ask, do I have the right characteristics and attributes to do well in business? And I just applied to Wharton School as an early decision, and I got in. So like without knowing too much, I got in and I was already there. But when I did attend the Wharton School on my freshman year, this is when I actually learned that I don't know anything about business. All my friends at Wharton, their father and grandparents come from business background. Either they own like hotel chains to their fathers are working in hedge funds, consultants. I had no idea about that industry. So it was a steep learning curve. It was really frustrating because I don't have any network in this industry. So I had to build from scratch. And fortunately, Wharton was a great platform to learn. So like, I don't think music transition from music to business was difficult, but when I was focused on business, it was difficult.
And do you think being a musician first and then a businessman has helped you in any sort of way?
Absolutely. I really think so. First, it's all about discipline. You cannot be a great musician without discipline.
Absolutely.
Because you have to practice really like every day. You think pianist enjoys their piano? I don't think so. But like, you just do it, right? Because you do it every day. So discipline is core to me and core to Shorooq. So it really is great. Second, I do think it really teaches you about teamwork. You cannot be a great musician without a teamwork. Third, I think it's more about just being expressive on many things. Music is another way, is all about expression. Whether you play the same song or same instrument, but everyone is different.
Yeah.
So like you can really learn your own voice, how to articulate stuff, which is all very, in my view, fundamental blocks for a business.
Absolutely. And you've studied business. So my question is that for a person to become a businessman or to establish a good business, do you actually need to study business? Is, education that important?
Absolutely, I don't think so. So this is my personal philosophy. To be an entrepreneur or even an investor, like the way I am, I don't think you need to go to business school at all. However, why does like a Wharton or Harvard or Stanford actually help you? They first give you the credibility that you don't need to fight to get. Okay. Let's assume I have music background only, and I tell you I want to be an investor. So the first question you're going to ask me is, what do you know about business? What do you know about investing? But because I went to a business school, I don't have to answer those. So I can focus the first impression, which is the most important time with anyone, on not on proving myself, but more on the topic. But if I didn't have this background, I have to spend time to explain and build that credibility, which is not the best first image to start with.
Yeah.
So in that way, it is helpful. But after that, it's all about your personal journey, personal story, and passion.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that after graduation, you've worked a little bit at some firms, and then along the way, you met Mahmoud. So tell me about that era. How did you guys meet? I know that you've met during something related, like some kind of a campaign or something you were working on with a lot of other people.
Yes.
So what drew you two into each other with that, completely different backgrounds?
Alhamdulillah. So, he's my soulmate, right? I have a few principles in my life. I should have a great wife and family, and I should have a great business partner or partners. Then I'm going to be extremely happy and satisfied and successful in my life. Why? I just need to execute. Dream big, execute small, and focus. So Mahmoud, he's just an amazing human being. Like you met him, if you see him, amazing human being.
Yes.
Integrity, work ethic, raw intellect, everything is just so amazing and really way better than me. So when I met him, I was just already drawn into his personal story. Like he's just a few years older than me, but he was already married with 2 daughters. And I told him, look, I want to get 3 daughters in my life. That's one of my personal goals. I'm not married yet, but like I want to have 3 daughters in my life. And he has 5 daughters now.
Oh.
So like everything about those personal story, and also it was at the right rhythm. You can be a great partner, but if you're not at the right personal chapter, it's hard to build business together. But we happen to be at the right chapter of our lives where we had numerous years in our career. Also, we met in the US, but we had a similar passion for the Middle East and emerging market. We had a similar passion for technology. We had a similar passion for impact. And that's how we started with such a humble beginning back in 2017. And honestly, we were so ignorant. We had no idea what it takes to build an investment firm, but you just start. Like, I don't think if you're so rational, you'll never be an entrepreneur. You just need to start somewhere and just figure out along the way and depend on each other, which is what we are doing.
You mentioned something interesting that, there is a certain point where you feel that you're ready now and you're ready to establish a business. So in your opinion, when is that moment? Like, how would someone know that they are ready to establish a business or start something new?
Perhaps I missed, but I actually don't know if anyone is always anyone ready. It's like, again, I don't have a kid, but I don't know if you have a kid. If you have a kid, people give me that experience that like, you're never ready.
Yeah.
Even until like the day your baby is born, you're never really ready. But you just think you're ready. You have to figure it out as you go. For me, like starting Shorooq, and we're constantly evolving and launching new verticals, launching new funds. So we're constantly an entrepreneur. I don't think honestly we're ready. What we think we're ready with is we know that if we have a certain thesis and if we have a certain view on the market, we need to make sure we play to dominate. We don't play to just enter. I shouldn't just launch something just to be one of the participants. I should only launch to really win and lead that market. Again, the principle, I want to be the first mover advantage to stay as number one. Right? I think those things we can do our best to prepare, but like you never really know. And I think you just need to have a right attributes, characteristics, strong team to iterate and figure out as you go.
Absolutely. And for those who don't know, can you tell us what Shorooq is? Because I remember actually speaking to your team a few days ago, and they were like, everyone thinks we're just a VC. We're way more than that.
Yes.
So tell us, what is Shorooq?
So our exact phrasing is we're a multi-dimensional investment firm. Multi-dimensional meaning that we started as a venture capital. And about 4 years ago, we launched private credit. And we are also in discussions to launch other verticals as well, be that private equity. So we want to be multi-dimensional, meaning that we have different strategies. And for our LPs, who are our investors, we want to be their partner of choice across these different strategies. You might want to get exposure to VC. I want you to think of Shorooq. You might want to get exposure to yielding products with credit. Then I want Shorooq to be that. You might want to have a strategy or exposure to blockchain or PE or something. I want Shorooq to be your partner. So that's a very important principle how we build Shorooq. Yes, many people think of it as VC. This is where Mahmoud and I spend all our time on. And this is our bread and butter. But even within the VC, we have early stage fund. We're soon launching global AI fund. We're soon launching many other strategies also. So that is the differentiation within a VC. So even within a VC, we're already different funds. So that's what we mean by multi-dimensional investment firm.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned that you and Mahmoud met in the US, in the
Yes.
Silicon Valley, which,
Yes.
Is the place where the superstars of the entire, business economy are born there. So why did you guys choose the Middle East? Maybe I would understand Mahmoud choosing because he belongs to the
Yes.
Middle East.
Yes.
But what drew you into the Middle East?
So let's start with the personal story. I love the Middle East, not only on the opportunities, but also on the values. the people. I even love the food. Like Middle East has a similar values to Korea. Family, the integrity, the who we are is very, very important. So I honestly prefer that value system more than to the US. So that's one. Second, we believe, Mahmoud and I, when we looked at the landscape, we were thinking, and it proved to be true, Middle East was just about to go through the evolution on the startups and tech ecosystem. Remember back in 2017, when we started Shorooq, we already were thinking about the Shorooq since 2016. Honestly, Middle East VC ecosystem was so nascent, it was not so clear. But we thought it's going to happen soon, and we wanted to be there before it starts. And we have been honestly just working hard and leading the wave. Now everyone thinks, oh, Middle East is so no-brainer to have a VC, to have a startup ecosystem. But it was not the case years ago. And that's really what planted the seeds for Shorooq. So I love the people, love the value system. Yes, good market, big market. Another important, just a quick framework or principle that I had was, I think it's easier to build a business when there is a capital. And second, I prefer the business model where I can sell $1,000 to one person, to 1,000 people, $1. So one person, $1,000 versus 1,000 people, $1. For example, Southeast Asia, many people ask me, Shane, why didn't you go to Southeast Asia? I thought Southeast Asia, there's population, yes. Indonesia is a large market, but average order value is so low. They don't have much capital there. Then why do I prefer $1,000 to one person business model? If you look at the retention, you can never have 100% retention in the second model. So out of 1,000 people, let's assume you have amazing retention like 40%, then you lose 600 people. Then I have to rebuild the business next year. Whereas here in GCC or in the Middle East, if I have a $1,000 customer, I just focus on that person, then I can have 100% retention. And I just add one more person next year. That's the growth. And this compounds over time. And you and I know the importance of compounding. So that's why I looked at the Middle East, not China, not India, not Southeast Asia. Remember, these three regions are big markets, but so much population, but low AOV, low capital. Hence, I wanted to focus on the GCC and the Middle East.
And Shane, I know that, from your story speaking to our colleague Claudine, I know that when you came to the Middle East, you actually booked a one-way ticket.
Absolutely.
So can you tell me about, that move, booking that one-way ticket? What were you thinking about? Was it full of fear? Was it full of excitement? How were you feeling?
So honestly, I honestly never had any doubt about moving here or even starting something. So I think I was just full of joy and excitement. So you're right, I only booked the one-way ticket. Now I realize how crazy that was. But frankly, back then I was so in the moment. It's like you do it. I was here. I booked the smallest studio in Business Bay and negotiated 14 months rent. And that was our office at Shorooq. So we never had an office back then. And this was also when Mahmoud was not full-time. Mahmoud only was able to join full-time in 2020. And I came here 2017, October 17. So for 2 years, I have this crazy story. I had a studio, but as an investor, I cannot look so poor. So literally, I was booking our meetings at a coffee shop at the hotel right next to us, called Renaissance Hotel back then, in Business Bay. I think now they changed their name to St. Regis Downtown. So right before the meeting, I dress up, go there, have a coffee, never buy a meal, but like coffee. Done, I come back to my apartment, change to comfortable clothes, just working. I did that literally for 2.5 years or so, because we didn't have a teammate. So like any other entrepreneur, you do everything from cleaning the back to important LP meetings or founder meetings. So I don't think it was I was worried or scared, was just very excited and honestly just humbled to be part of the Middle East story, even back then. Because back in, there were not too many funds, nor too many Asians. So like wherever I go, I think people saw like Mahmoud and Shane, Emirati and Korean
Yeah.
partner to launch something that's already unique.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. By
So
itself is very unique.
yeah, and I do believe if you have insurance to not go all in on whatever you start, I think it doesn't result in a good output. So hence, yes, one-way ticket. I never thought that was crazy. Now I can understand why people look at that as a bit bizarre, but like I never doubt it.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that at that time, the Middle East market was not that mature. Not a lot of, investment companies or VCs were there. Actually, I remember when we met in December with you and a lot of other VC founders, you guys were surprised that we have that many nowadays.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's how rare it used to be. So how difficult was that actually to start, the business into a very new, fresh market?
Yes.
How many no's did you actually take?
So it was extremely difficult, and it still is difficult. So we have two customers, one called LPs, limited partners, who are investors to the fund, and founders of the companies we invest. So those are both our important customers. The difficulty of starting an investment firm, you need both at the same time. I need money to invest. I also need a company to invest into. So, but if you ask me what's first, we always adopted the approach, not the capital first, founders and the company first. So I focus everything I have on finding the right company. And we were fortunate to invest and lead Pure Harvest, Sarwa, Trucker, these type of companies who have become industry leaders now. Pure Harvest, we're producing 800 tons of tomatoes a month. Sarwa, we're managing more than $500 million AUM. They're the leading B2C fintech. So we were able to lead these companies. How? We first focused on the founders, built trust, and they gave us an opportunity to invest. Then I raised capital concurrently. Like Mahmoud and I came from such a humble beginnings. Like we were managing like just few $1 million as a start, which was even a lot of money because we were syndicating $50,000, $100,000 tickets by investors. And that's how we started. So like it was difficult, but honestly, I don't think, I never felt it was tiring though, because I was literally working from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Like every day. And I don't think that was like difficult because you're young and you have such a strong adrenaline.
Yeah.
And it was fun to build something, fulfilling to build something, and which we're still going at it.
And what about the rejections? How many rejections did you have to take to start with a good story?
Yeah, so if I can count, probably that's not enough, right? So hundreds and hundreds really of no's to get one yes. Founders think it's hard for them to raise capital, which is true.
Yeah.
But it's also very difficult for VCs to raise capital. Extremely difficult. What do you have? I have a PowerPoint, I have a presentation to sell my strategy, but it's way less tangible than like startup founder. Startup, let's say I have a product, I'm gonna show you a demo. I have a business model I'm gonna show you. Funds, hard to differentiate. It's hard to really show you the real product because I don't have a company I invested in. Yeah. So hundreds and hundreds of no's we got, and we're still getting. I can tell you a funny story. Like many people think Middle East has a lot of money. And I even said just now, Middle East has capital. But we have capital for real estate. We have a capital for private equity. We didn't have capital for VC. Now it's 100 times better than 5 years ago. But back then, we really did not have capital. So many people used to ask me, Shane, if I give you the money now, what's the yield I get? That's the real estate, like a return.
Yeah.
We don't think it's a real estate yield. So I used to tell them, look, if you give me the money, in 5 years, I can give you more than 15%. Why? 15% every year for 5 years is 2x. 25% every year for 5 years is 3x. I can give you more than 3x, but not every year. I just can give you in 5 years from now. It's like many people had to understand from the real estate concept that I was able to explain. But like with all that hard work, initially we were really picking up $10,000 ticket. Now our minimum subscription is $1 million.
Yeah.
That's like
Wow.
100x growth. But fortunately with all the people we were able to start from small, they were still our big partners.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And as you mentioned, you packed some of the superstars of the startups in the Middle East that are, some of them are now huge and became, huge companies. From your experience working with these successful people who at that time they were just starting, have you noticed, a common trait amongst all of these founders that actually make a solid founder? Because you said that you
Yes.
actually focused on the founders
Yes.
more than the business idea itself.
Absolutely. So there are three, in my view, ways to give my personal view. First, how do I look at it as a VC job? VC job is to identify and discern good crazy versus bad crazy. You can be crazy, and you do need to be crazy, but you need to be a good crazy founder to build a sizable business versus bad crazy. So that's one of the things we look at. Second, I personally ask two questions that I meet. Can I work for this founder? Like I've always done well in my life also. I've always been good crazy, hopefully. Not bad crazy, but I've always been crazy also. Extreme, passionate, sincere, fast. So can I find myself working for this founder? That's a big bar. Second, can I see this founder running $500 million company? I need to be able to see this person can run a big company. Why? Because that's the business model of a VC. There are amazing founders who can be a great founder for SME. But VC is capital. Our source of capital is not for SME. We really need to have a scalable company because that's how my fiduciary duty to my LPs. I cannot underwrite just 2 to 3x return. I need to underwrite 10x, 20x, 50x return, which we have done successfully for many of our investments. But these founders, can I work for them? Can they run $500 million company?
That's a really interesting, perspective to think about it, because a lot of people would, may think of it as, the business idea itself rather than the founder. But actually, at the end of the day, it's the founder who pushes the business idea.
Yes.
You mentioned that you've invested a lot, and many times that has worked out. But do you remember your worst investment idea?
So many. And they're all in our website, by the way. So we never hide our wrong decisions because we also need to learn, make sure we learn from them. And one of the things we do extremely well with our LPs, whatever bad decision we have done, we share them the post-mortem reflections extremely well. And sometimes we even make them public on our website. So like, I don't know if you're looking for specific names, but we have a lot of examples. And generally those are examples when we made the decision out of our principle. Either we were FOMO, we're humans, so we also get FOMO, or FOMO with time, generally. Or we felt this is actually a calculated risk, but actually it turns out to be almost a gamble. I have learned so much in the last 7 years and a half of building Shorooq as a founder that another way to describe my role and Mahmoud's role is all about assessing exactly what risk we're taking. What is the calculated risk? Everyone thinks they're taking calculated risk. No one thinks they're taking a gamble. But if I really think about it, some risks were not worth it. They were a gamble. And I should be accountable for that. But sometimes we took right calculated risk and we have done well.
Absolutely, and I know that you during your talk with our colleague Claudine, you mentioned something very interesting. Which is that values were the foundational or the foundation of Shurooq. There are certain values that you never let go.
Yes,
Can you tell us what one value that you always carry along during all the meetings, all
yes.
the discussions throughout the way?
So I call it extreme ownership, EO. Like anyone, be the founder or teammate of Shorooq or our LP, anyone, as long as we maintain utmost standard of extreme ownership, I think we'll all do well. What does that mean? If I am focused in this podcast and representing me personally, but also Shurooq, I need to have extreme ownership. If anyone is doing something, he or she needs to be accountable, responsible, and also has the ownership. And we normally drive our decisions for that. What does that mean? We generally don't do large teams to make any decision. We have a lead and support. I have a lead and support. I might not be the lead just because I'm older or I'm a founding partner doesn't mean I should always be the lead. I'm a support. The lead makes a decision. Why? Because the lead will have the extreme ownership of their project. We do this on a micro level, even to this degree. We have something called PTTL or PTAL. PTTL, please take the lead.
Okay.
You lead it. That means you're going to make the decision. Sometimes I send you PTAL, please take a look. You don't lead it. I will lead it, but I want you to look at it. So even to
Interesting.
that micro level, we actually care a lot about that efficiency. And like Shorooq, we generally do a very good job. And this all came from me and Mahmoud. But I have this framework that the extreme ownership is extremely important. That also starts with communication and clear delegation.
And throughout our conversation today, you mentioned Mahmoud a lot, and almost on all the pictures and all the interviews, everywhere you guys are together. So, can you tell us about the secret to a lasting
Yes,
partnership? Because it's very difficult to actually find the right partner in a business.
absolutely. So brutal honesty and respect for each other, right? I never second doubted. Not only, frankly, Mahmoud's decision, my team's the decision. We might make wrong decisions, but we need to learn and iterate fast. Then generally it turns out to be very good. So my partner Mahmoud and I, we have this brutal honesty. We still talk every day at 7:30 a.m. Could last for sometimes short 15 minutes. It could last for like an hour and a half every day.
Wow.
So, but what do we talk about it? We talk about micro things to large things. But there's brutal honesty and never second guess, right? Because we're one team, one family. And I generally try to do that for all the teammates as well.
That's really interesting. And do you think is there any like disadvantage or an advantage to having a partner? What are the disadvantages and advantages?
So disadvantage, people will normally say, oh, can you work as fast? Can you move as fast? That's probably one thing people will normally cite, but I have a very different view. You know this because you work with so many entrepreneurs. Shorooq is a startup to me. It just happened to be my revenue model is to invest in other companies, but it's a startup. And now I've been building the startup for 7.5 years. It has been extremely difficult journey. Many people think investors, we take like a hot chocolate or this sweet potato every day at Bahamas or at Maldives. Honestly, we're really working every day. And I don't think there was a single day I really had without Shorooq. So what does that mean is you're constantly lonely and you're constantly debating if the decision you made is the right decision, right? Because we don't know. You only know, especially in an investment firm, in about 2 years to 3 years from today. So if you can have a teammate or partner that you can bounce off ideas to make the right collective decision and not be lonely in your journey, I think that's the best thing you can have in your life. really. Like otherwise, yes, you might have 100% ownership of something. So in absolute figure, that might be great. But honestly, I think that's not a fulfilling life I want to have. Otherwise, you should always be single and you have every money for you, or you have everything for you. But I don't think that's the happiness or success that I'm looking for.
Absolutely. And actually, Shane, you mentioned something that people think investors or business owners in general have a very, colorful life. It's super easy. They, as we mentioned maybe before we started, that, people think that you guys were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and everything was easy. But if you want to actually look back at that journey, you mentioned that it was not easy. What do you think was the toughest or the hardest challenge that you guys have faced?
So I think there are two things. First, generally, if you're a good founder, I believe you should be able to know what can kill you. So in our board meetings, I asked the team, the founders that I invest in, what can kill you? If you identify that, you shouldn't be killed because you identified and these are the risks you should have mitigated. Those things actually don't scare us. What I'm scared of is the things that I do not know, the things that I did not anticipate. These things can really make a big delta. Second, I wouldn't say I am scared of, but what I do feel what can happen is our job, as much as good we can do, if you look at it, if you watch any TED Talks and etc., the common trait by successful people is they call timing. Timing has to be right. I can have the best idea, best business model, but the timing might not be right. Then how do you control the timing? I know this is controversial because founders might say it's my job, it's my task, but actually, you gotta be at the right time. Shorooq, I told you I had a thesis on the Middle East, and I came to Middle East in 2017, right before the birth of what's happening now. And I don't take credit for that. We worked hard, we had a right thesis, but the right macro was also there. How we launched a private credit 4 years ago. Many people challenged us, but now everyone wants to get into credit. So a lot of our VC peers are launching credit.
Yeah.
So timing is so critical to anyone's success. And I think people really made it or humble because of this. Because deep down, you're not the only one. You're not the biggest reason perhaps for your success. So now to respond to you in a very long way, Mahmoud and I am constantly trying to figure out what is the right timing to do something. I don't want to be too early because I don't have time to wait for 5 years, but I don't want to be late. So like you and I briefly talked about Syria.
Yes.
You and I talked about Saudi. What's my view on Egypt, Pakistan? What's my view on fintech? What's my view on software? Those are all combination of I need to be at the right timing. If I'm not at the right timing, that's the most difficult thing because I'm not going to do well.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, and we talked about it a little bit, and I know that you guys have been promoting it, that Shorooq wants to become the Blackstone of the Middle
Absolutely.
East.
Yes.
Tell me about that dream.
So it's a big dream, and I've been saying since 2017, actually even before that, to be honest. But as we get larger, now Shorooq, alhamdulillah, we're one of the most reputable firms. As we get larger, I'm also feeling the weight of saying we want to be Blackstone, tailored for the Middle East or frontier markets, and also to the current generation. So I'll give you specifics and I'll tell you the intangibles also. When Blackstone was founded 40 years ago, they were going through private equity revolution in the US. This is 1980s where mortgage-backed securities was being formed. There were a lot of financial revolution happening, and they were the right timing. We look at Shorooq journey as the right timing to build Blackstone of the Middle East, but different from Blackstone. Why? Middle East is different from the US. 2020 and 2030s are different from 1980s. It could be a real estate still, but we don't want to be so deeply into infrastructure, where Blackstone is very deep into infrastructure. Why? We believe that era has passed. We believe the current era is technology.
Absolutely.
Blackstone is not so big on VC, not so big on technology, but we are big on technology. Why? We believe this is the era. So we're not blindly following what Blackstone has done, but we want to take the principles. We want to take the asset manager. We want to take their model, adapt to emerging market, especially Middle East, adapt to current generation, and also adapt to what we are very strong on, which we're risk takers. We want to be the principal investment firm. Blackstone is different from Apollo and many other firms. Why? They're also principal investment firm. They take risk with their own capital. They are not just asset manager. I can be a great asset manager, but no, I want to be a good fundamental principal investor.
Absolutely. And, you spoke about the challenges that Shorooq has faced. But if we want to go back to Shane and focus on you,
Yes.
if you do remember that long journey, whether it was Shorooq or even before that, what would you consider the biggest failure that you have faced so far? And how has that actually shaped who you are today?
So, and I'm still failing on this. I'm not so good at managing personal and professional stuff together. So I cannot multitask very well. So I don't want to use the word Shorooq for at least for 10 minutes. That's my challenge.
Yes.
So, but whatever I do professionally has been my personal. Like I still work on Sundays. I still even work on Saturdays. I don't really care if I have a call or a meeting at 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11 p.m. I also wake up early at 6 a.m. So do I have a really good personal life outside of my firm? I also struggle with that, which is not sustainable. Like I tell you, my goal is to build our firm for the next 40 years. I still have another 35 years to go. For 7 years and a half, I want to do another 35 years. Then it has to be a marathon. Alhamdulillah, today my stamina and my health has been good. But can I really maintain the current pace for the next 10 years? Perhaps, but after 10 years, I'm not sure. So I need to learn how to, also be distant. The more you want it, I also sometimes need to know how to be distant. But I'm not so good at that. And my team also gives me that feedback. My family gives me that feedback. But I'm not so good at it. And I'm still wrestling. I do all the same stuff, meditation. Like I try to play golf here and there. I travel, but my issue is I travel a lot for work. But I love traveling. But generally, 99% of the times I travel for work is personal. But this is where I'm constantly seeking for advice on how I can maintain my personal and professional stuff together.
And how are you doing today on the mental aspects?
So I try to have focused, uninterrupted mornings. I wake up at 6:10. Kunar, my other partner, he wakes up 4:30 a.m. But I wake up at 6:10. I cannot do what he does like this. Then you cannot have a nightlife. So I wake up at 6:10. I meditate for a good 10 to 15 minutes. And I try to write down with note, pencil, and paper until around 7:30. And then I have my calls with my partners and team. And generally, I'm at the office, let's say 8:10 to 9 a.m., depending on how late my calls finish. And then throughout the day. We now have a rule. I don't want to have calls after 11 p.m. because it affects my sleep. Because I cannot sleep sometimes when I think about many things. But my mental, that's what I try to do. Saturday, I try to do more relaxing stuff. But I'm not so good at it.
And you mentioned that, and I hear this a lot from all the founders that I meet, that they work, you could say 24/7.
Yes.
Their phones are never off. And they try as much as possible to leave a room for some relaxation. But do you think this is the secret to success? Is this is the secret recipe behind success? Or could there be some kind of luck
Yes.
sometimes? What's the secret to success?
So this is where I wish I can cry in front of you, but generally I'm not so good at crying in front of people. I do cry alone, but so as a founder, I think people are always worried and scared about if I change some of this stuff, do I lose grit? Do I lose perseverance? Do I lose discipline? Because of that, I think we continue the way it is, which I don't think is the right way to think about. For example, I can certainly work less. I can certainly do some things differently, but I am worried as a human being, if I change this, will I lose grit? If I don't work on Sundays, will I lose grit? We all know grit is what we need. But sometimes my teammates tell me, Shane, we got to work smarter, not just harder. I agree. But can I work harder and smarter? So like there's never enough. That's what I drive my colleagues crazy. Like there's never enough. Because even to me, I still think I can do more. Right? Honestly, there's a long, complicated answer of, I don't think just because you're working 24/7 is successful, of course. I'm sure there's high probability and high correlation between the two. I'm still figuring it out. So if you have the answer, do let me know. My style and principle has been, let's be humble, sincere, and passionate, which results in working hard, which results in 24/7 type of stuff.
Absolutely. And how do you personally define success? Like, when do you know,
Yes.
or when would you say that,
Yes.
today I'm successful?
Yes. This is a great question. And one day, one of my older brothers asked me, like not a blood-related older brother, but like another close brother asked me, what's success to you? And I actually couldn't give him the right answer, surprisingly, because it was so clear to me always. But when I try to explain, it's like, oh no, that's for Shorooq, that's for Shorooq, like you personally. For me, what do I enjoy? I like building stuff. Like entrepreneurship or Shorooq is all physical manifestation of we're building something. I get excited about building perhaps in Syria, perhaps in fintech, perhaps in private equity, perhaps in venture capital, which is what I'm doing at the moment. So that, as long as I can continue to do that, and I can continue to dominate, but domination is part of the journey, I think that's success to me. Like, because people like, can you retire? Because I live a very simple life. I don't have a fancy stuff. So like, am I going to be very happy without a lot of financial means? Probably yes. But that has never been the output. Hence, I'm still working. And today, we're far more stable than 7 years ago. I don't live at a small studio anymore, right? I still live at an apartment, but I don't live at a small studio. But financial means, yes, is an output, but everyone says that for me, success is building something with people that I enjoy, people that I love. One of the best things at Shorooq, my firm, I chose all those people. Like every single one of them. So it is my wrong if I'm not happy with the people that I chose,
Absolutely. And if we want to talk about you, focus on you. I know you mentioned that
Yes.
maybe success stems from the
Yeah.
fact that you are,
Yeah.
successful in your business. But if we want to focus on you, is there something that you have never actually publicly shared with people,
Yes.
and you actually want people to know about you and your journey?
Yes. I think so. Look, I want to do more music. I want to travel more. These two things, I don't want to give it up. I'm just patiently grinding and waiting until the right moment. For example, I've done a lot on the piano and the clarinet. I want to do singing. I love singing.
Wow.
Koreans, we love karaoke, right? So
Yeah.
I've always done a lot of karaoke in my life. But I want to learn how to really use my voice to sing and perhaps publish that in YouTube,
Wow.
publish that in many others. I love music. And singing is something I also enjoy, but I've never had time to do a professional. Why? Because when I was in middle school and high school, like I cannot make my living as a vocalist. At least I can be part of a wind ensemble and do the concerts throughout. So that's one of the things. Second, I really wish I can spend more time to travel more for, it doesn't have to be only personal, but I want to travel more to different places. But a lot of the places, again, I'm an emerging market focused. So I don't travel to Paris. I've never been to Paris. I've never been to Portugal. And these are the places I want to go and perhaps just relax for a few days. So I'm so-called workaholic. Like they have the same issues, right?
And Shane, beside, I know that, and we talked about, that you actually and Mahmoud are trying to build the Blackstone of the Middle East. But beside the business legacy that you're trying to do, what kind of a personal legacy that you want to leave?
Honestly, I want to be surrounded by people I love, people that I want to just go out for dinner, watch a movie, hopefully do a cappella together. I already told my team, Shorooq team, like I want to do a cappella with us. That would be honestly what I would dream to have. We have like Shorooq team, LPs, founders, I all enjoy spending time with. I want to spend more personal time. And this is nothing related to Shorooq. I want to go out, have fun, have dinner. We can play golf together. We can play squash together. We can do band together. If we can do that on a personal level, that would be the best thing I can hope for. And of course, healthy, like everyone needs to be healthy and like physically stable also.
Absolutely. And I am really, looking forward to both seeing
You'll be part of our a cappella. Right?
I would love to. I don't have that great of a voice.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I think it's all about everyone has a part in music.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I would love to actually. And I'm looking forward to seeing Shorooq growing and to seeing you actually growing on a personal level and achieving all these dreams. I'm really thankful to this conversation
Thank
that we've
you.
had today. I've learned a lot from you and it has been actually a very interesting journey. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
sharing
so
it
much
with
for
us.
having me. And any questions, anything personal, professional, I'm here for you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.